Hello everybody and welcome to my video on how to complete the Fang Lair hard mode no death speedrun. So this is obviously the achievement for managing all three of these at the same time. I have to be honest, this took me a fair bit of time to actually do. Pretty much someone would die. But I've got a few tips for you to actually progress through the different bosses, especially the final boss where we'll go into quite a bit of detail. I'll give you a bit of sort of advice on how to actually progress through that achievement if you are interested. I'll also do my best in this video to try and explain how to do some of the easier achievements on the way. But yeah, I mean, this is largely going to be focused on sort of veteran players. But again, if you are a less experienced player, this video will also be very, very useful for you just to understand the general mechanics of the bosses. Because obviously you don't have to do this without dying. This is completely viable for the run. General advice on the bosses and all of that, so it will still be completely useful. So a big tip before we move into anything specific boss wise, one thing that is really helpful here if you want to go for no death hard mode speedrun is to go for 3 DPSs and 1 tank. And largely the reason for this is going to be the final boss and the first main boss. So the room we're entering right now is not exactly a boss. I will explain it in a sec. Just those bosses are very heavily intensive in terms of survival, and obviously the quicker you kill the boss, the easier life is going to be. So the first phase you're seeing here is sort of a semi-ad wave boss. You really need to shield as you see those ghosts spawn on the pillar, the sort of cyan ones. If you are not shielding there is a chance that you will get stacked out. If your stamina, just keep quick cloak up. That's obviously going to reduce your AoE damage and block. To be honest, I would suggest blocking the whole time. But there is quite a bit in this waves that can sort of completely screw you. So honestly, take my advice here and just play defensive. There's really not many ads. It's not very intense. If you're running with even just 2 DPSs, they're going to die so damn fast. So just play defensive, keep a shield up, because there are occasions where a lot of ads can stack you out. I know the very first time I ran it, it was so embarrassing because it was, you know, it was the very start of a run, really strong group, and I instantly got stacked up with the ghosts for full health. I didn't even have time to cast any skills. We had a healer, didn't even matter. It was so embarrassing. But yeah, as you can see, it's only 3 waves of ads. That's literally it for that boss. There is a progression bar, and then you're going to get your first loot. To be honest, like most of the sets here are not exciting. Calorian's pretty interesting. I'll be trying that on my Mage Blade. So in general, that's kind of case. I'll let the run sort of progress now and explain a few more things about the boss in general. So that first boss, there is actually no side achievement. In fact, I don't think there's any side achievements until the next boss coming. But generally speaking, most of the achievements in this are going to be related to the final boss. And most of the ad phases are not that specific. We're going to come up to the first sort of mechanic here, which is this Colossus. Now, you're going to see these a lot throughout this dungeon. It's very important that the tank tries to control these during the ad phases. But if you do see it loose as a DPS or a healer or whatever, and you see it cast a heavy attack. Now, how to tell that is it's going to get sort of a white flash around its head, sort of white speed line type things. I don't know how to describe them. I'm English. Who knows? But if you ever see those and you see it sort of directing towards you, fist ablazing, make sure you roll dodge about a second after, because it's got quite a delayed cast and it's going to make life easier. And as you can see, these are spawning absolutely everywhere in this dungeon. Actually, a nice tip for you is most of the chests seem to be located pretty close to these atros. Not all of them, of course, but that does make life a bit easier. In terms of the other ads in this bosses, we're not seeing very much in particular going on. To be honest, there's pretty much nothing going on, and the chance of dying is pretty slim. There's 1 or 2 packs that can be a bit dangerous, so try and keep a shield up if you are a little worried. Generally, you'll see me do that in this video as well, because it's not worth really taking the risk. You're not exactly in a rush in terms of DPS, so you can go for that. I was talking before about sort of healer and DPS type stuff. Obviously, if none of that's that interesting to you, you can just skip to the bosses. I'll probably skip a fair bit of the ads as well, because like in general, this is a pretty ad intense dungeon. There's not too much going on in the way of bosses. You've got 3 specific bosses, 1 kind of ad phase. What on earth was I doing in that video there? I don't know. 1 sort of ad wave as we saw at the start, and then the final boss. It can be frustrating because like the rest of the dungeon can be a bit boring up until the final boss. But honestly, if you're getting this DLC, which I would kind of advise, the final boss is so fun. I stand by that it is the most fun mechanics of any boss in this game, probably for a very foreseeable future. And if you're a PvPer, you're actually going to shine here, I would say, because it's very sort of focused on movement and more so that than actually posting DPS. I keep getting distracted. Why? So we were talking about healers. So from a healer's perspective here, it would be kind of advisable to try and slot some sort of side DPS because there's not much going on in the way of overtime heals. A little bit on the final boss can be useful, sometimes in the ads, but for the large part, after you've placed your buffs, you may as well slot some DPS stuff. Honestly, I have ran this dungeon twice with a healer in about 50-60 runs, and not a single time did I see a Breath of Life need to be cast. It just wasn't needed. There's not really many high damage mechanics here, and even those that are very, very recoverable. Most mechanics that are going to kill you are going to be an absolute one bang. So generally speaking, I wouldn't worry too much on that front. Anyway, moving on. So we are moving on to the next boss now. Well, first boss, really. So this consists of 3 mini-bosses and then 3 tiny ads. You've got this one here, which is a Guar. What he'll do is, if you're slow, he'll start spawning flowers around, which you may have seen earlier in the dungeon. All you got to do is avoid those flowers, nice and easy, and then do them. The wolf has a really annoying attack where he'll either fear you or if you go too far, jump on you. And that will hit really, really hard. I've heard rumours that that's not tauntable, but I don't really know. I'm obviously not a tank myself, so give it a try. But it doesn't matter very much anyway, because it's a great way of doing this boss, which I'll explain now. Obviously, the boss is the bear. You're seeing the ads now, by the way. Those, just don't let them get close to you. I will explain them in a sec. So general mechanics here, stack up the wolf, which is the one we're seeing dead behind the bear on top of the Guar. When you do that, every single DPS and healer will drop their ulti. If the tank's got a Warhorn, even better, he can drop the Warhorn. And to be honest, the healer can even destroy at that point because you want to melt the ads fast. Kill the ads and then just nuke the boss if possible. If your DPS is a little lower, you are going to need to kill those ads again, especially the wolf can be a bit of a pain if you don't kill him quickly. The side achievement here is to simply not get killed by the wolf. That is so easy to do if you do the mechanics properly. Pretty crap drop there. What a shame. But something else to mention there, as we saw with those little dogs. So with those little dogs, just don't let them get close to you. They do get close, they will explode. I honestly still advise stack up everything in the middle and just make sure the DPSs pay a bit of attention to those ads. Kite the ads around and just keep circling around the boss because it dies very easily. There's not much going on. And as I mentioned, if your DPS is lower, if you've only got 2 DPS, they're not that experienced, it's fine. Just try and focus those side ads, not the main boss, and kill the main boss during the downtime. Because the wolf especially will hit pretty hard if it does that leap. It's probably a one-shot. It is an interruptible mechanic, but I think you're going to be lucky to interrupt. You only get about half a second or so to do so, and it could be a bit of a pain. Yeah, I think that covers everything on that boss. Obviously, we're well past that because it's not too difficult to do. I'm sort of trying to do this in real time. We're going to move up to one of the more dangerous ad waves quickly, so I'll quickly give you a bit of advice there. But you're going to notice a mechanic in a sec anyway from the skeletons. You'll see it just behind me there. Basically, these skeletons launch kind of a big frontal AoE. There's 1 or 2 patches of these mobs where if you are going for Nodeath-Hardmode speedrun, you're going to have to pay a bit of attention because a few of them might cast that ad wave at the same time. And obviously, if you do take that twice, you are in deep doodah. It's going to hit pretty hard. So just try and keep a shield up when you first enter, and then probably the tank's got them by that point, and you'll be absolutely fine. They don't hit very hard. It's just if you're in light armor and shielded, you're going to take a fair bit. Next boss, you've got 2 tactics. So this is the Lich. 2 mechanics here. So first things first is if you are 3 DPSs and you have good DPS and a good support tank, you can do what we're going to do here, which is just outright nuke it and ignore every single mechanic in this dungeon. There's nothing you need to focus on really apart from these Lich. It is a normal Lich boss, so you're going to see these crystals coming out of the ground. Step out of the way of it, happy days. It's really that simple, just move out of the AoE. A lot of groups, I guess, are not going to have the DPS to rush this. So what you're going to need to do is around the room, you would have just seen it to my left, sort of in green. You can see one to my left right now as well, sort of a mammoth tooth or something. They're basically spawning a negative effect. So this one is the skeletons. There's one with a root. There's one with a large lightning AoE dot. I think there's even another skeleton. You can just see it again, that green light in the background. All you got to do is kill that. It does have a fair bit of health, and it can drag the fight on quite a bit. There is even a side achievement for killing all of these during the fight, and even a weak DPS group is probably going to have to be slow for that. My biggest suggestion is do one test run and just see how much DPS you guys actually have, because a lot of groups, even with just 2 DPS, inexperienced, are probably going to get away with just killing the boss down to about 50-30% health, killing 1 crystal, and then killing the boss. If the boss does get all crystals, it gets a pretty large damage shield, so that's why you don't have that as an option. Again, a pretty simple ad wave here, but then we move very quickly on to the next boss. This boss is extremely easy. Not a lot can go wrong here. As long as the tank keeps his block up, you're good to go. I don't know if it's a bug or not, but there's a really nice mechanic that you'll see us use here. Basically, part of this boss, he's going to do sort of a chain. So this ghost that you see right now is going to spawn on top of the boss's head. It has two mechanics. The boss itself is very easily tauntable, doesn't hit very hard. The ghost is either going to direct its angle towards you, point its hand forwards, which you'll see very, very soon, and then do a fear. So we're going to see that right now towards the tank. And then towards us, we're going to see the other mechanic very soon. All you got to do is step out the way of the fear. This is the chain you're seeing on our right. There's two ways to get around this. So we're doing it sort of the normal way right now, which is to simply kill it. The other way to do so is to purge it, because it is a negative effect. It is purgeable. Outside of that, there is this fire that sort of lands. You're going to see a purge right there. Doesn't hit very hard. Honestly, I wouldn't fuss about it too much. It's pretty damn simple to get around. And yeah, it's not really going to prove you very much problem at all. But outside of that, it really is just that fear. There is a side achievement for not getting feared. Don't bother with that in any particular sense, because it's very easy to get. I wouldn't fuss about it too much if you don't get it on the one run. You'll get it very, very quickly afterwards. It's not very challenging. Yeah, that's that boss done. Not really a lot going on. That is the final boss before the final boss. That didn't make much sense at all, did it? That's the final boss before the... I don't know what I'm saying. It's the last boss that's not the main boss, basically. A few more ad waves are going to appear here. There is actually a chest sometimes spawns to our left. I found that one particularly common, so if you are interested in the sets, I would definitely suggest checking sort of that table to our left. Very, very common that we have that there. By the way, like whilst we're talking over this, because this is just a few more ad waves, let me know if you'd like me to keep these ad phase discussion in, sort of go into this bit more in-depth discussion. I didn't really know, since it's the first guide I've done on dungeons, how much detail you wanted me to go in, whether I just talk over the bosses or whatever, because we do kill the bosses pretty fast, especially since we're running 3 DPSs. So I just thought I'd go into a bit of detail through the whole dungeon. But yeah, I mean, I suppose just listening to me is probably fine. I've got a pretty understandable accent, I like to think. These ad waves have one more mechanic now. You are going to see these crystals spawning. All you need to do with those crystals is kill the crystal. But you do have to kill the ads as well. Honestly, just drop an ult. It's going to die very easily. Not really a lot of threats in these dungeons ads outside of the Atros. The Atros you are going to see again in the final boss. And this is one of the last. It might even be the last before the final boss. We're getting there pretty close now. There is still the Deadly Pack to come, as we like to call them, just after some guy got wrecked by these NPCs. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot can go through. What else have I got to suggest? Oh yeah, which dungeon? By the way, tell me in the comments. Which dungeon would you like to see next? I could do Scale Caller. I haven't actually got Nodeath Speed Mode Hard on that, though. I've not really done that very much yet. I've got all the other achievements, but I haven't really been focusing on that because I don't really need the sets from there. It's a bit crap. Obviously got Zarm, which is crazy strong, but outside of that, who cares? Last Atria coming up here, and then we are going to move on to the final boss. So before I get distracted, hit the like and subscribe if this is useful to you before the final boss. It does help me out, lets you keep informed as to what's going on in the channel. And yeah, it gives me a chance to keep this content rolling out, because we've had amazing support recently. I have to thank you for that before we get on the final one. Honestly, like the sub count, Twitch, YouTube has been rocketing. The amount of people helping out in the stream, YouTube again, has just been phenomenal recently. I don't know what it is, whether people like the full-time, whether it's the daily videos. Again, maybe let me know in the comments, like, how I can help this improve even more. I'm more than happy to do so. I'm putting in a lot of work. I want this to be able to grow. So just let me know and I can help. If you don't say anything, don't blame me if it's not done, basically. I was wrong. That was the last Atria right now. We're going to go down a ramp and then we are going to approach the final boss. If anyone's wondering how I did this, by the way, this is basically a software called Twitch Leecher. It basically lets me like extract my files from Twitch, spend some time editing it on my Sony Vegas and all, so that it's a little more accessible. Kind of easy, really. Simple as that, I suppose. So we're going to move down this final ramp. You're going to see the final boss. Now, final boss has a lot of mechanics. What I'm going to try and do is I am actually watching my own videos I do. I'm going to try and explain this as we go for the most part. A big thing for the tank here is you're going to want to slot talents. The tank needs to control these scarabs because they're very, very dangerous. Now, if your tank is not experienced, the tank is probably going to want to have the DPSs kill the scarabs because they do hit really hard. They do put sort of debuff on you. But yeah, if you can control it with talents, they do die over time. Anyway, the other big mechanic he has is a large poison AoE that you're going to see spawning a lot. And that's going to be the most part. So there's those scarabs real fast. The breath doesn't hit very hard. It is blockable, but it is still going to stun you a little bit. It's nice and simple. Don't over DPS the boss. You might even see us do that in this run. It's very important that you don't rush DPS on the boss because as you saw, we get these crystals. And in hard mode, these hit very, very hard. What you're going to need to do with those crystals is take turns in your group. 1 ulti per crystal. Someone's going to ult it. You'll see my ult coming in now. Kill the Atronac first, not the crystal. Focus the Atronac fast. That way you're going to avoid any heavy attacks. And then kill the crystal. Again, pay attention DPSs. If you do get that crystal, you're going to need to kill it. Don't do what our DPS did there. Try and keep it under the crystal. That Atronac is going to be dead very, very quickly. And there you are seeing that poison AoE, by the way. But these crystals spawn at about set percentages. Didn't really work out exactly. It seems to be somewhere like 84, 86-ish, 78, 76-ish. Somewhere in the 60 lows and then sort of mid-50s that they spawn. But I didn't really get an exact number. It seems to even vary a little bit. But it is definitely health controlled. So maybe someone knows the exact health. I don't know. We kind of DPS a bit fast to tell. Another mechanic here that you would have seen, obviously, is this mage. He's the one controlling the crystals, but he also does put down a large AoE spray. That's an interruptible cast. So if you have someone with Crushing Shock, that can make life very easy. That is a morph of the Force Pulse skill. The other one, not the damage. That's very, very handy to have. But if not, just have people aware to bash it once, and that will sort that out. Main mechanic now appearing. This is not yet hard mode mechanics. This is just a wave of ghosts. When this wave of ghosts spawns, it's going to spawn on a random side. You're going to stand behind that yellow shield that this ghost brings, and you're going to focus down the boss and then move through the entrance, watching out for any poison AoEs. I really advise you stay towards the middle in this because it is possible, if you're close to the wall, that the ghost will literally spawn on your head and you will die. So try staying in the middle and then just move as needed away from the ghosts. Focus down to the shield and stack out the boss. It should take you like a max of 4 phases. It took us 2 there. Sometimes you could do it in 1. But here we go. Here is where things get finally intense. So this is the final phase of the boss. And what you're going to get now is an endless constant wave of ghosts spawning. As soon as one wave goes, the next wave will spawn. You have to pay attention here. It's very important that you are avoiding those. I'll come back to that quick mechanic coming in here. So every so often, the boss is going to throw a fear. You need to take 1 yellow light each. I would suggest using voice comms for that and sort of discussing who takes which. If you truly don't have access to voice to do it on the spur, set each person a corner. They're not very often spawning next to each other, and it is a bit easier to do so. There are only 4 in hard mode, so you have to get enough each. Our tank goes very low there. My God, I didn't realize how close that was. A little scary. Yeah, so anyway, another big mechanic is these Colossus are going to spawn every 10% health. So as these Colossus are spawning, focus them down early. Do not leave them to focus the boss. They do hit really hard. They are kind of your biggest threat apart from the ghosts. Because in the end, they're percentage based. You're not going to get spam with them, and it's going to make your life easier. The biggest tip I can possibly give here is to keep your focus on the ghosts. Whether you only light attack for DPS or you just focus on full rotation, it doesn't make a difference. Because if you die to those ghosts, you are gone. Goodbye, no death. Probably goodbye, run. Rezzing in this is very difficult. In the final phase, you're pretty much only going to have a chance to res. And I would only even say try and res in that phase where you're... well, basically where the fear is coming. But we do get it down there. Pretty happy days. Got the No-Death-Hardmode after a long time. It is that simple, really. So if you do need any more advice, let me know in the comments. Again, I'll do my best to explain it. But it is that simple. Avoid the ghosts. Focus on the ghosts as much as you can. And you'll be fine, guys. Good luck in the dungeon. And yeah.